I bought the lowest cost watchmaking kit that you can get. It's $6 on Amazon. For $6, this thing's pretty complete. We'll take a look at this stuff and see if it's actually worth anything at all. It's got a pair of tweezers, 3 screwdrivers, 2 blades for opening up the backs on the watches. Here's a device for spinning off the backs of watches. It'll adjust to the size of the watch. Here's a device that'll actually hold the watch or the movement. I'm actually surprised that it's made of metal. I was thinking this was going to be plastic, so I'm happy about that. Soft towel to keep everything protected. First things first, let's check out these tweezers. Even if you had top-of-the-line tweezers, you need to keep these things honed up. The most important thing is that these things are non-magnetic and have the ability to be able to pick up small pieces. Right here's a small piece, and it looks like it is anti-magnetic, which is extremely... Oh, I spoke too early. See how it's sticking on there? That is so not cool. There's not a lot of magnetism on there, but there's a little bit, and a little bit can be extremely frustrating. When you're working with these little pieces, you want to make sure that they don't stick at all. And look, even this one has a little bit of stick. Even though I thought this one was completely anti-magnetic, you can see even the one that I use is a little bit magnetic. Because of that, I'm not going to jump up and down too hard on this one because it's not sticking too bad. To give you an example, this is a real expensive Swiss one that says anti-magnetic, but you can see this one is a lot more magnetic. Here you can see this little screw stuck on there. You give it a little tap and see how it's still not coming off. So here's the cheap one. We'll give it the test of time. As long as you keep these things honed up, it doesn't matter if you have a good pair or a cheap pair. You have to keep them all honed up. I would say this passes. Let's move on to the next one. Look at these screwdrivers. I doubt the tips are hardened steel, but that's not an absolute necessity. With 3 screwdrivers, I was really hoping for a smaller one. This is one that I use all the time, and you can see the size is a lot smaller than these 3. For the price of these, I could probably take one of these and just kind of grind it down a little bit thinner. Screwdrivers of this size would work really nice on a pocket watch, but when you get smaller than that, these are going to be a bit too big. For $6, I was amazed that these even came with screwdrivers. At least the tips are replaceable, so you might be able to take a piece of hardened steel and put it in here and make your own screwdriver. Here's a screwdriver that I made using an old masonry nail. I ground it down, and this thing works amazing. So if you took a tip like this and put it in one of these, it might be pretty nice. Even if they're not hardened steel, if you keep these honed up, these things are going to work pretty nice. Here's an example of a back that needs to be spun off. So we'll take this and spin it to the right side. Actually, this thing's working better than I thought it would. Sometimes these backs can be really tough to spin off. Sometimes I've used needle nose pliers to do this. This other tool is a lot more stable. Like you can get pretty good grip on it, and it's low profile. I'm going to give this a real test. This watch, I have tried everything to get the back off. We'll try these new tools and see if it works. Clamp it up in this vise. With this metal clamp, it really does pull it in pretty tight. I can't believe it. This thing just opened this thing up. I'm impressed. I'm actually surprised it worked. This is the first time I'm able to see inside this watch. I can't believe for $6 this thing actually works. It looks like it's possible to move these little pegs around, but so far it's been able to fit a couple watches. I doubt that it's going to be able to fit little movements, but I'll give it a try. I'll move these little pins in. Oh, what do you know? Nice and tight. I was not expecting that. I kind of like that these are plastic and aren't going to damage the watch as easy. Now this is probably one of the biggest pocket watches. I'm going to see if I can adjust it and fit it. In the middle here you can see this little spring, which is actually working quite nice to keep everything from rattling around. I'll move the pins all the way out. I got to say hats off to the designer. It just grabbed onto this nice big watch. I got to say that's in there nice and tight. I don't want to go too tight and dent it because it feels like you got the pressure to be able to dent it if you want. The last thing would be these 2 back openers. We'll try these. They're going to do a lot better than my utility knife, which I've been using for years. This watch will be an acid test for it because the other day I tried the utility knife and it would not pop off. The idea here is you get underneath and you pry it up, and this one goes into the palm of your hand, and the trick is you don't want to go too much where you can actually hit your hand or scratch the watch. I did this off camera, but sure enough it worked. Worked really well. See, this utility knife sometimes is pretty thin. I'm afraid the blade's just going to crack and break. The blade on this is actually very thick, so you don't feel like it's going to snap. I didn't get a chance to try this one yet, but this one worked really well, and this will give another option. When I saw this watchmaking kit for like $6, I figured I'll give it a try because I don't have some of these tools. Now in some cases, there's some tools I'm just not willing to try the cheap ones, like these oilers. They do make cheap ones, but I got the Bourgeon. For like oiling watches, you dip a little bit of oil on this, and then you put it very accurately onto the watch. This set of Bourgeon oilers was about 20 bucks, and the cheapest one that I could find was about 10. Now it's possible that these cheaper oilers might work, but I didn't want to give a chance because oiling is so delicate. I didn't want the tool to fail because it's hard enough as it is. Now I'm sure there's better quality tools, but I gotta say, I did the acid test on this thing. I tried a lot to get the back off of this, and these tools got it off. When I saw this thing in the picture, I wasn't expecting much, but actually with that metal thread and this metal spring, the metal bars in here, this thing actually does a fairly decent job. I think this thing is not designed for holding movements. I think it's more for holding the cases, but I was able to hold the movements, and I think I can work around it for a little bit. Now, if anybody else has tried these tools and you like them or don't like them, please put comments down below.